Oh, eNCA's Ayesha Ismail is talking to constitutional experts and civic organizations this morning. Let's remind you why. 25 years since the country's constitution was adopted way back in 1996. Let's take you live now down to Cape Town, where she joins us. Hello to you, Ayesha. And obviously, I think anyone is going to draw a comparison, won't they, between the constitution and also Parliament, which is where we find you just a few meters away from.
Indeed. So, Gareth, as you said, we're celebrating 27 years of democracy, and of course we're also celebrating 25 years of our constitution, a liberal constitution, one of the most progressive constitutions in the world. In theory, some would argue. But I'm now joined by Lawson Naidoo of the Council for the Advancement of the South African Constitution. Lawson, how does your organization ensure that the South African Constitution, that the rights in the Constitution is guaranteed for all people in South Africa?
Well, as you say, the Constitution is a fundamentally progressive document. It's also, I would describe it as a transformative one, that it provides the framework for the realization of the rights that are set out in the Bill of Rights. But we need to have strong institutions. We need to have a political will to be able to realize those rights. So our focus recently has been on strengthening institutions of governance, including this building behind us, which has failed on many occasions to execute its constitutional responsibility to hold the executive to account and to make sure that government does indeed put in place programs that realize those rights to health, housing, clean water, sanitation, things that will improve the quality of life of ordinary South Africans. So once we have strong institutions, we will be able to do that. But we need to work hard to make sure that that constitution becomes the live reality for many, many more people than it already has.
So you talk about these rights enshrined in the Constitution. Would it be correct to say that there is a way to compel government to put these rights into practice? We talk about the right to education, the right to basic services, the right to a roof over our heads. But there are so many people who are still homeless. There are people who, poverty is very high in South Africa. And then, of course, the right to education.
Well, what the Constitution says is that the state must take steps to progressively realize those rights. So it can't all be delivered immediately, but there's got to be a plan to do that over the medium term. Now, we have the National Development Plan, but we need to see how those plans that government are talking about are actually budgeted, and how we're going to increase access to land, to housing, to education, and universal health care. Those are the important things that need to be realized if we're going to fulfill the vision of the Constitution, which is to create a society where human dignity is respected above all else. And we're a long way away from having those systemic programs in place to be able to realize those rights in a meaningful time frame.
So, ordinary people, when people say that my constitutional rights have been violated, what recourse do they have?
Well, they have a range of options that there are. So the Public Protector is one such office. The South African Human Rights Commission is as another Chapter 9 institution. These institutions are there to help ensure that those rights are put into practice and are realized. And if those rights are transgressed by the state, then the recourse is either through one of those Chapter 9 institutions, or alternatively through access to the courts. But that, as we know, is a very expensive option. It's time-consuming, and not everyone has access to the courts in that way. So, it's up to institutions and civil society organizations like ours to hold government to account and to ask them to put in place the necessary measures for these rights to be fulfilled.
We often hear people saying that the South African Constitution is so liberal, it even guarantees the rights of criminals.
Well, it's ordinary rights that people have of a presumption of innocence until proven guilty in a court of law. But that relates to the criminal justice process itself. Now, we're a society, as I said, premised on human dignity. And until someone has been found guilty by the courts, they've got to be accorded basic human rights. And those rights are there, and they help strengthen the criminal justice system. They uphold the rule of law. And we're a society that should be proud of being governed under the rule of law, where there are a minimum set of rights for all people in South Africa, including those that are accused in criminal processes.
Thank you so much for your time. And that was Lawson Naidoo from Casac, the Council for the Advancement of the South African Constitution.